Here we are. We finally have gotten up to the mammals when you're like, oh, now we've got an animal I can relate to. And what is the big advancement that mammals have? Well, mammals have a slightly different way of reproducing that we're going to talk about. Mammals, instead of having scales, they have got hair, or you might call it fur. Also, all mammals, um, they feed their offspring with mammary glands. Now, the mammary glands look different in some of the earliest versions of mammals, and we'll just talk a little bit about that. So we're going to talk about mammals, okay? Before we talk more about mammals, let me make sure that you know about the different nutritional lifestyles that mammals can have. Herbivores eat only vegetable matter. A good example of an herbivore would be a deer, like here, or a horse, or a cow, or an elephant. I think I don't have it here, sorry. But when you're looking at the teeth, the kind of teeth that we have in our back molars, this is Daisy, our back molars, those are the kind of teeth that allow herbivores to really grind up the dense plant matter that they eat, all right? You can tell what kind of food an animal eats by looking at their teeth, okay? What kind of food they eat. You can't tell whether I'm an herbivore or a carnivore from looking at my teeth, but you can tell my species is actually meant pretty much to be an omnivore that mostly does vegetables. If you are looking at an animal like a cat that's a carnivore, then they have got really long canine teeth for grabbing their prey, or grabbing a chunk of meat and tearing it off of a carcass. And their molars don't look like ours at all. Their molars look like, here, do you want to show them your molars? Yes. Their molars look like sharp blades going past each other. So that would be a carnivore's teeth. And I think our example of a carnivore's teeth in the lab is the coyote, which is kind of looks like a dog. And then there are omnivores. Human teeth look more like an omnivore that's more herbivore than we are carnivore. We don't have very good canine teeth. We can't grab prey with them. And we do have pretty good molars for grinding up vegetable matter, okay? So carnivore eats only other animals. Cats are carnivores. Dogs, wolves, coyotes are actually omnivores. And deer and stuff like that are herbivores. And you can tell quite a bit from looking at their teeth. That'll be part of your lab today. Reproduction, I want you to know these terms. Oviparous means that they lay eggs. So birds are oviparous. Snakes are oviparous, right? They lay eggs, the eggs hatch out. Viviparous. Viviparous is mammals. And a couple of types of reptiles, strangely enough. Everything's more complicated in biology. But viviparous means that the fetus develops with the help of an organ called a placenta inside of the uterus of the mother. And then ovoviviparous. Actually, some sharks are ovoviviparous. Ovoviviparous means they make eggs, but instead of dropping the eggs outside where someone could find them and eat them, they make the eggs, put them inside of their body, let them develop, and then once they hatch out, the newly hatched babies can leave the uterus. There are some sharks that the first shark babies that hatch out, instead of leaving, they stay and eat the unhatched shark babies, which is really cannibalistic and awful, but they're sharks. What are you going to do? Okay. Let me remind you about chordates. Humans all the mammals are still chordates. The dorsal hollow nerve cord has become our spinal cord and brain. The notochord has become all of our little backbones. The pharyngeal slits and the postanal tail, well, plenty of animals still have a postanal tail, but even in humans, while we're in the process of turning from that little beanie baby looking thing into the babies we are when we're born, there are periods of time when we do have pharyngeal slits that can be identified. It's just that our the starting point that we have as humans inside of the mom looks a lot like the beginning of all of these animals we've studied so far. It's just that new things happen, like we don't stop there. New things happen to our pharyngeal slits, right? So, now mammals. Mammals have started out being a creature that tried to give birth to live young, but did not have a good enough placenta to get those babies all the way to being born. So the very first version, sort of the beta test version of a mammal, is known as a monotreme. There are only like 5 different species of monotremes left on the planet. The duck-billed platypus is one, and then there are like 3 different species of echidnas. And they actually will start growing their offspring inside of their uterus. And at a certain point, the offspring gets to a certain age where it's growing faster than the uterus's placenta can nourish it. So they put it inside of an egg and lay the egg. And then the babies hatch out of eggs. And then the mom does still nurse the babies with milk. Now, another thing that's different about the monotremes is that they don't actually have mammary glands. You know, like a cow has got an udder or humans have got breasts. They don't actually do that, but they do have mammary glands. They've got milk producing glands, but they just kind of are like in different regions, and the babies have to go there and suck up the milk that's coming out of the mother's skin at those places. These kind of mammals only live in Australia and New Zealand. There aren't very many places where they live. Now, the next version of mammals are the marsupials. Now, the marsupials were a very successful type of mammal, very successful. It used to be that the entire land mass of planet Earth was covered with marsupials. All of North and South America, not that long ago, was covered with marsupial mammals. Now, marsupials are the ones that have their babies in pouches. Now, what's going on here? Well, here, the placenta of the uterus of this form of mammal, it is a little bit better than the monotreme. It can get the baby a little bit bigger, but still not big enough to actually be born. So marsupials, the babies get born like after about, well, with possums, about 12 days of being pregnant. And then the babies, they have to crawl up the tummy of the mom and go into this thing that we call a pouch. And when they're in the pouch, they hook onto mammary glands. They just like hook onto them, and then they suck the milk out of the mammary gland, and they finish developing. And then at a certain point, there'll be like a recognizable little baby kangaroo or a little baby koala bear. And then they'll leave and experience the world, hop back in the pouch, gets a meal, and then they're still nursing off of the mom, even while they're jumping in and out of the pouch. So the pouch does a couple of things. It starts off just basically developing. These things are still fetuses. They're not ready to be born yet. But then after they get fur and stuff like that, then it's just a place for the babies to sleep and to pick up their food, okay? So here's a marsupial. Look, it doesn't even have an ear or an eye or toes or bones or, okay, but it got born and it found its way up into the pouch, and there it is going to be hooked onto the mammary gland for a while as it finishes doing its development, and then it'll finally be something that'll pick its little head up out of the pouch. Now, I told you that North and South America used to be completely colonized by marsupials. Now, the only place that we see lots of marsupials is in Australia and New Zealand. And that's where you see koala bears. Those are marsupials. Wombats. Oh, so cute. Wombats are so adorable. What is the cuter thing? There's something that's even cuter than a wombat. Darn it, I can't think of the name of it. Anyway, and kangaroos, right? So Australia, that whole continent, and New Zealand that used to be attached to Australia, it broke off of all of the land masses back before marsupials, I'm sorry, mammals like us had made that evolutionary leap. So back when the whole landmass was covered with marsupials, Australia and New Zealand split off. And so that area is still just covered with marsupials. The dingoes were brought there only when humans came to Australia, so they don't really count. Now, North and South America also had nothing but marsupials. But then mammals like us that grow their baby completely inside of the uterus, we evolved and we outcompeted all of the marsupials on North and all around the planet, all on North and South America. The only marsupials that survived in Central and North America, and they're the possums. Possums are the only existing marsupials. I love possums, okay? I'm a veterinarian, right? So if you've got a possum that got attacked by a dog or hit by a car, you can bring them into the veterinarian and they'll let us treat them. They are not tame. They're not fond of it, but they hold still. And they're actually very easy to deal with, even though they're wild. But if you've got a wild cat that gets brought in, oh, holy cow, good luck with that. So they're actually very, very sweet. If you've got possums living in your yard, you will never have trouble with slugs or snails because the possums eat them all. And possums don't carry rabies and they don't bite people and they would never attack your dog or your cat, although your dog might attack them. They're really very, very nice. So I think everyone should be nice to possums. And besides, represent, right? Like they are the one marsupial that has managed to survive after all of the other marsupials got outcompeted by mammals. Now there are the placental mammals. Now, all of these mammals technically have a placenta, but not a very good one. The mammals that now have taken over the planet are the eutherian mammals or the placental mammals. And the placenta of mammals like us, they are so good that they can get a baby to live long enough so that within an hour after it's born, it can stand up and walk around, right? So that's a really good placenta. Placentas are a part of your lab this week.